seeks international cooperation assures of intensified efforts to halt community spread of COVID-19. Work resumes in the nation's capital following gradual ease of lockdown. Plus, European Union pledges €1 billion for global vaccine search. President Muhammadu Buhari this Monday participated at an online summit by the Non-Aligned Movement, where heads of government of the movement are of the view that national, regional and global strategies will be required to tackle the coronavirus pandemic. The president says the task before the international community remains daunting and more needs to be done to reduce the impact of COVID-19. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports that President Buhari at the summit assures that his administration will intensify efforts to curb community spread of the virus in Nigeria.
Against this common enemy by being coordinated and timely in our response. Furthermore, we must all encourage and empower our scientists and medical experts to join the quest for a vaccine and cure to this universal plague. In addition, we must acknowledge the central role of the United Nations and the World Health Organization in fighting the pandemic. It is therefore essential to fully collaborate and support their initiatives in coordinating the international fight against the pandemic. Such efforts should include the protection of our medical workers, the provision of medical supplies, especially test kits, and ultimately finding a vaccine to cure the disease. Mr. Chairman and Excellencies, let me state that in the spirit of solidarity, we must collectively appeal to international financial institutions to assist member states in cushioning the negative impact of the pandemic.
All right, it's the first working day after the announcement of the gradual ease of lockdown by President Muhammadu Buhari in the Federal Capital Territory, Lagos and Ogun states. That is part of efforts towards curtailing and containing the spread of coronavirus in Nigeria. Adebola Brooksland Sunday visited the Federal Secretariat to observe the level of compliance with the federal government directive on precautionary measures.
This long queue is an evidence of the willingness of Nigerians to resume to normal way of life. The queue along Lugbe Airport Road is unusual, but it's one of the challenges the people will have to face on a daily basis, hopefully for some time, as a result of guidelines for enforcement by security operatives. Drop them. At the office of the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, similar checks were carried out.
Being in the office here won't be the issue, but where you're coming from is an issue. That is the basic thing.
If you're below grade level 14, you go back home. I mean, it's not been easy, but in some instances, if you have your COVID-19 essential duty pass, allow you to go in. But if otherwise, you go back home. Because it is an extant circular, duly signed by the HOS.
After temperature check using the infrared thermometer, workers were asked to wash their hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds before proceeding to their duty posts.
For them to have done this within the last 2 weeks or thereabout means that they're serious. But I would advise that they put napkins so that after washing hands, you can mop your hand.
Ibrahim Dasuki Arabi is the Director General, Bureau for Public Service Reform. He told me the presidential directive must be adhered to.
That no staff should be allowed entrance without face mask. We have provided hand sanitizers. We have educated our security men to block people that will pass even through a place without. So anybody that is not abiding, we'll ask him to return home.
The head of the Civil Service of the Federation last week announced the resumption to duty by workers on grade level 14 and above. Adebola, Brooksland Sunday, NTA News.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says the relaxation of the lockdown does not mean that the danger of the coronavirus infection is over. Consequently, banks and other business places should discourage convergence of customers on their premises. Chairman of the task force, Boss Mustafa, says preliminary reports on the relaxation of the lockdown in Abuja, Lagos and Ogun states indicates high level of breaches of guidelines. He therefore appeals to Nigerians to desist from attacking security personnel in the discharge of their duties and not take laws into their hands. Minister of Health and that of Environment were also concerned about rising community transmission of the coronavirus infection in the country.
We urge citizens to minimize the risk of getting infected while trying to transact in the banks. We similarly urge the banks to ensure that their ATM machines and online banking systems are in good order and stocked regularly to avoid convergence of customers in their premises.
We are in the community transmission mode, and our strategy is to take all persons who test positive for isolation, even if they have no symptoms, so that they do not run the risk of infecting others who may be more vulnerable due to other diseases which they have.
If you're wearing a mask and somebody is not wearing a mask and is standing very close to you, the droplets he will produce could land in your eyes and you could get infection. If you're wearing a mask and you do not wash your hands, those surfaces that are contaminated with the virus, you could end up touching your face and getting the infection.
PTF appeals for greater understanding from Nigerians to ensure that the easing of the lockdown does not result in compromising the nation's health for wealth. And Nigeria is not the only country easing its restriction on lockdown. Well, we hear that lockdown restrictions are easing across the globe as governments move to the next phase of their response to the pandemic. Joyce Amatu will give us an update on Global.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC has confirmed 170 new cases of COVID-19 in the country. A breakdown indicates that Lagos has 39 cases, Kano 29, Ogun 24, Bauchi 18, Kaduna 15, the Federal Capital Territory and Sokoto 12 cases each, Katsina 8, Borno 7, Nasarawa 3, Adamawa 2, and Oyo 1. As at 12 a.m. 4th of May, Nigeria has 2,558 confirmed cases, out of which 400 have recovered, while 87 have died. In Africa, authorities began relaxing coronavirus lockdown measures as a tally by Worldometer as at 6 p.m. shows that the continent has reported 45,777 COVID-19 infections, 1,810 deaths and 15,400 recoveries. The European Union has pledged 1 billion euros for the global search for a vaccine and treatment of coronavirus. Meanwhile, records by Johns Hopkins University as at 6 p.m. show that the number of confirmed cases of coronavirus worldwide is 3,595,306, with a death toll of 249,223, and over 1 million people have recovered. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that as many as 100,000 people could die of coronavirus in the United States. The country so far has recorded 68,715 fatalities and 1,192,216 confirmed infections. New Zealand reported no new case of coronavirus on Monday, marking the first time the country recorded 0 new cases since its outbreak in mid-March. And Italy is easing its COVID-19 restrictions nearly 2 months after becoming the first country to impose a strict national lockdown. Iran has allowed the reopening of mosques in 132 cities that have been consistently free of the coronavirus. The capital, Tehran, is excluded. However, it is a different story in Japan, as the country's prime minister extended its state of emergency until the end of May. And that's it from here. Many thanks for staying. I am Joyce Ometu.
Thanks, Joyce. Well, there are indications that Nigerians are having access to food and other commodities as federal and state governments restrict interstate movement. Musa Baba Ali reports that availability of produce is based on presidential directives that the food supply chain should be maintained as the country fights the coronavirus.
Access to quality, nutritious and affordable food, the World Health Organization says, is paramount in the fight against disease and poverty in any society. And that is why the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is emphasizing that citizens should be allowed access to food, water and medication.
United Nations agencies in West and Central Africa.
At an international virtual conference hosted by UNICEF, the emphasis was on fighting poverty, malnutrition and hunger in controlling the spread of coronavirus.
We must sustain those programs that are supporting those millions who are facing acute hunger.
If control measures do not change dramatically, cases in West and Central Africa will double almost every week.
The steps taken by Nigeria in achieving food security amidst COVID-19 include allowing farmers produce and supply produce to any part of the country. To further ensure total compliance, a task force has been put in place with the primary objective of ensuring that all security operatives at state and local government levels abide by the presidential order.
This lockdown directive has similarly been given by various state governments in an effort to prevent community transmission of this disease within their respective states. Hence, the need to put in place a strategy to facilitate free movement of food and agricultural inputs nationwide to avoid food shortages and ensure 2020 production season is not hampered.
A survey conducted by officials of the Ministry of Agriculture and that of Industry, Trade and Investments indicates that no part of the country is experiencing food shortages in terms of demand and supply. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Studio to throw more light on the workings of Interministerial Tax Team. On movement of agricultural produce, we have the AIG Operations, Kelvin Agbolahan. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Austin Agbolahan.
Okay, I beg your pardon. All right, now the lockdown we know has been relaxed in states like Ogun, Lagos and the FCT, but there are concerns that supply of agricultural produce may be affected. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you so much. I think with the establishment or inauguration of the tax scheme, I think it has been so easy for the free movement of food and other agricultural inputs. We were inaugurated on the 24th of April, and immediately after the inauguration, we set in motion to achieve the 4 points mandate or terms of reference that were given. And since then, we'll be on, I think the first amongst the terms of reference is to liaise with state agencies of states and local government to ensure that there's a window for the free movement of these food items and agricultural inputs, as well as also liaise, because the composition too, I think, gave us the opportunity to be able to liaise with the internal security agents that are in charge of enforcing the lockdown. So our communication with them makes it easy for them to allow free flow according to the presidential directive for these food items and agricultural inputs. And like I said, immediately after the inauguration, we set in motion. And in areas where we think there are challenges, and we always get in touch from here to them. And specifically on Thursday, last week, on the 30th of April, we set out by moving to Niger State, Kaduna State, as well as Nasarawa State, after having patrolled the FCT, where there were gridlocks on this movement of agricultural inputs, and we were able to, educate the men on the enforcement.
Okay. AIG, aside the agricultural produce, are there other commodities that are allowed free entry?
They are not. It's not only agricultural products. I think the presidential directive is clear on it. All essential services, members of the teams of essential services are equally allowed free passage. And you all know that, what it means. They compose of health workers, the police or security agents who are enforcing it too, because all through we're still on duty. Then you find those two, food items, those in charge of medicals or drugs, they also allow free movement, not only food.
Okay, so, but, you know, we already know that state governors have their own restriction orders in terms of interstate movement. What's the collaboration with states?
Yeah, the collaboration is very smooth because it's also part of our mandate to liaise with state agencies at both state and local government levels. Like we know, immediately after our inauguration, we also called on the states too to have a replica of the kind of team we have here. Also, we are in touch with all over the states. And if there's anything that would have hindered the free movement of these food items and other inputs, we communicate with them. And that is why we equally have some phone numbers, dedicated lines that we have actually published, and maybe for...
Okay, well, have you ever, during the operations, have you encountered any situation that the state cannot resolve? And what did your team do from this angle?
I would say for now, there has not been any. There has not been any. Though for some states having international boundaries, I think every state with their different approaches to it have a right to stop goods, for instance, coming across, since the borders are already closed. So I think those are the calls at times we get. And since it's on the international, borderline, I think we cannot start, telling the states to open the borders for them, because that is would be contrary to the situation in the country or the directive of His Excellency the President.
All right, thank you very much, AIG Austin Agbolahun. Thank you very much. We do appreciate your contribution on the news. Let's take a break. We're back shortly, so you stay tuned.
Make your home the place to be with GoTV's super cool kids channels.
That sounds fun.
From funky friends that'll keep even the little ones busy.
All right, everybody, let's do this!
To learn as you watch educational shows for curious young minds.
You can do some amazing things.
There's plenty for everyone. Tune in to our kids shows and get everything you need to keep the kids entertained and learning the fun way. GoTV, live it, love it.
As part of efforts to reduce the presidential sit-at-home order, the Federal Capital Territory Administration has provided 6,000 palliative items to Gwarimpa Ward in Abuja Municipal Area Councils. FCT Minister of State Ramatu Tijani Aliyu promised that no part of the territory will be left out. Let's hear from Ifeanyi Zumba.
Reiterating her early call to residents and beneficiaries to return any food item not fit for human consumption instead of going to social media platforms to complain. FCT Minister of State Ramatu Tijani Aliyu said the distribution to Gwarimpa Ward marks the climax of Phase 1, adding that Gwarimpa Ward is about the largest estate. There was need to put into consideration the population density and the size to ensure justice is done.
That will be able to serve the needy government support whenever the need arises from now henceforth. We are also going to emerge with a data. So to all these supports across the 6 area council from the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, I say thank you very much. It is your collectivity, your unity, your belief in this process that is leading to the success of this process.
Receiving the item on behalf of the council, Vice Chairman, Abuja Municipal Area Council, Lawrence Onuchukwu, commended the FCT administration for the transparency in handling the palliative distribution.
You can see the FCT Minister of State going around the houses herself, giving this palliative to the people that really need the palliative. Nobody is diverting anything.
So we thank the residents of Abuja Municipal Area Council for their cooperation, and we are hoping that when we go for the second round, the entire area council are going to really behave well. But the only area council that we had problems with was Buhari Area Council for some obvious reasons.
Leaders from the Igbo, Yoruba and Hausa communities, including representatives from civil society organizations and youths, were on ground to support the administration. In Abuja, Ifeanyi Isumba, NT News.
And in the bid to contain COVID-19 and reduce its effects in the face of the economic realities and hardships, the Northeast Development Commission has presented palliatives in form of food and medical equipment to Adamawa State Government. Yusuf Jika reports.
The items shared to help fight COVID-19 and palliatives to cushion its effect include 4 well-equipped ambulances, 200 infrared thermometer, 50 beds, hand gloves, face masks, 10,000 bag of rice, 900 bag of maize, 1,700 cartons of macaroni, vegetables, among others. Head of Northeast Development Commission delegation to Adamawa State, Yerima Gashi, said NEDC is concerned with the predicaments and hardship posed by the dreaded COVID-19 pandemic, hence the need for the provision of the items to ease the difficulties being faced by the people.
Ordinary face mask, we give you 500 packets. Temporary, we have given you 2 pieces. Hand gloves, we have given 400 pieces. White hand sanitizers, we have given you 400 pieces.
Receiving the items, Deputy Governor Adamawa State Crowdeseth, who expressed appreciation to the Commission, said it will be adequately used for the purpose intended.
We assure all the citizens of Adamawa State that the government of Adamawa State will ensure transparency and fairness in the process of distribution of these items to the people.
In Yola, Yusuf Jika, NTA News.
And in Rivers, wife of the state governor, Justice Suzette Wike, has called on non-governmental organizations and public-spirited individuals to collaborate with government at all levels to fight COVID-19 in the country. Justice Suzette made the call shortly after her appointment as COVID-19 UNICEF champion for risk communications and community engagement in the state by UNICEF representative Dr. Maria Modeste Yogo in Port Harcourt. Ogedi Inyekwere reports.
Justice Wike says such collaboration is necessary to achieve greater success in the fight against COVID-19. She observes that the fight against the spread of COVID-19 will not be an easy task, going by the behavioral changes required. She noted that communication is key in arresting the situation. Governor's wife enjoins all stakeholders to work relentlessly to defeat the virus.
It's not going to be an easy task because there will be need for behavioral changes like you have mentioned, such as wearing this face mask, which I have to say is very discomforting. It can't be easy, but it's a sacrifice that we all must engage in. Of course, the hand washing aspect is also a very useful part of prevention.
UNICEF representative Dr. Mariam Yogo says his organization will continue to work with the Rivers State government to check the spread of COVID-19. He commends the efforts of the state government so far.
And I'm here to renew UNICEF commitment to fight side by side with the government of Rivers State.
The basic hand-washing recommendation against the spread of the coronavirus was demonstrated by the governor's wife. In Port Harcourt, Ogedi Inyekwere, NTA News.
Let's look at other issues. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arraigned former Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, who is equally former presidential aspirant of the People's Democratic Party, Kabir Tanimu Turaki, along with 3 others before the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on 16-count charge bordering on money laundering. The former minister, his aide, and 2 other companies pledged not guilty to all the 16 counts charge and applied for bail on the grounds that the offence is bailable, which the Commission's counsel, Halima Shehu, did not object. Justice Inyang Eko granted the defendants bail on self-recognition and the same administrative bail conditions granted by the EFCC last year.
And you will recall that we did tell the courts
that the defendants never breached any of the conditions, and they have met all the conditions for the grant of bail.
The case has been adjourned to the 22nd to 25th of June simultaneously for hearing. Let's look at some more news from the foreign scene. Togolese President for Nasimbe has been sworn into office at a restricted ceremony due to COVID-19 restrictions. The ceremony took place in a hall in the capital, Lomé, with Constitutional Court judges presiding over the ceremony. The president of the court administered the oath of office on Nasimbe, which is his fourth consecutive term. His oath included, amongst others, a solemn pledge to respect and defend the Constitution, to faithfully fulfill the high functions entrusted to him, to be guided only by the general interest and respect for the rights of the citizens. He is also to devote all efforts to the promotion of peace and national unity. President Muhammadu Buhari, in a telephone conversation with Nigerian President Muhammadu Issoufou, commiserates with him over the death of his Minister of Employment and Labour, Mohammed Ben Omar. A statement by Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, says President Buhari extends heartfelt condolences to the government and people of Niger Republic and the family of the deceased over the unfortunate loss. The President described the late Cabinet Minister, who was the former spokesperson for the Nigerian government under President Mahmoud Tanjan, and also served in Parliament as a dedicated politician who gave his best for the progress, prosperity and socio-economic development of his country. President Buhari praised God Almighty to comfort the family of the deceased and grant the soul of the departed eternal rest. And President Hassan Rouhani of the Islamic Republic of Iran has condoled with President Buhari over the demise of his Chief of Staff, Malam Abakari. A statement by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, says the President, Rouhani, in a letter prayed for the good health of the Nigerian leader, the family of the deceased, as well as the well-being of the Nigerian people and amid the coronavirus pandemic. We're done with the news. Thanks for your company. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.
This